Bradford Ferguson, I don't know if you know it, but Larry Goldberg wants Elon and or Tesla to take over Apple. Brian Wong last night explained that he would like Elon to buy back $40 billion worth of he'd like Elon himself personally to buy $40 billion worth of Tesla shares over the
Mm.
next 12 months. You have another plan. I don't know, there may be other plans rolling around, I'm not sure, but at least in your case, you've already had an ability to test whether your plan would have been smart or not. So talk to me about, I think back in March, you had a plan and everybody laughed at you. Well, not everybody.
hmm Yeah, so I think Tesla should do a buyback of their stock when it's getting beaten up unnecessarily. And the idea isn't to prop up the share price. It's for Tesla to retire shares at a low price. So, there's a lot of people who favor, buying the stock. I think at a similar time, Larry came on your show and said he was buying leaps.
Huh?
Um, Everybody cheered that Elon bought $1 billion worth of stock. So it's like okay for everyone else to buy Tesla stock, but it's not okay for Tesla to buy the stock,
Right.
according to many. And maybe that's because Elon, hasn't favored it yet.
Mhm.
But it's just smart corporate practice. So you were an entrepreneur, you still are. If you still had your business making bottles, and let's say you had employees that had shares, if you had an employee that was selling shares at 50% off, um, you'd want to buy those shares at a discount. Even if
Yes.
you couldn't afford it personally, you'd probably figure out a way that the company could do that.
Right, right. So I think at the time you weren't quite as complex in your assessment. I think you were just saying they should buy shares for the purpose of gaining gaining value. In other
Yeah,
words,
gaining value. So like, yeah, why earn 4% on your
right,
money
right,
sitting in the bank when you can earn, 50 to 100% when you buy Tesla off of a bounce?
right. So now
Um,
let's go
yeah, so so let's go through some of the arguments.
for sure.
People say, well, Tesla has a lot to invest in,
Right,
and they need the cash to invest in these areas to grow the business.
right.
And I agree with that. So Tesla over the last 2 years, and this is through the end of the second quarter, has spent $20 billion on capital expenditures. So that's for both maintenance of the current, property, plant and equipment, et cetera, but also for growth for lines that are going in. We know there are lines going in Texas. Um, but that's also for future growth.
Right.
And also, they spent $10 billion on R&D in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
So
And
they spent
this,
$30 billion. They're spending money as quickly as Elon's comfortable with.
yeah.
There's nothing more that Elon invested in. Otherwise, he would have done that.
Mhm, mhm.
Despite spending 30 billion on um, the future and maintaining their business, their cash still grew by $15 billion.
To where it's now 37 if I if
Right. So yeah, cash and short-term investments where you combine those two. So they take a chunk of their cash, they put it in US treasuries that are about a year to mature or whatever. And those are highly liquid. So if they ever needed to sell some, they could do that. Um, Back then the stock was 230 and there were multiple days where it was below 230 and I was making a push for it for them to do this. And this is the second or third time I've called for a buyback and it's been a really good time to do that. And one of them was when the stock was 170 in December of 2022. So it wasn't quite the bottom. I didn't quite, wait for the bottom there, but that was still been a really good spot to buy back the stock. And Tesla would be up over 80% on those shares today.
right, right, right. So
Whereas um, they earn 2% on the
Right.
money in their treasuries and in their bank account.
So now, does it matter?
Like, do you want Tesla to earn 2% on these
Okay.
assets or a higher amount? And
So,
the other thing is like, okay, let's look in the future. Well, we want to wait till Robotaxi and Optimus are going strong for Tesla to do this. Well, when that's happening, the share price is going to be much higher in my opinion. It's going to be,
yes.
2,500 to maybe $5,000 a share.
Uh-huh.
Um, so do you want them to buy back the stock when it goes on sale in the $200 or $300 range, or do you want them to pay 2,500 to $5,000 per share? And so, like, as a shareholder, I want them to buy it when it's lower.
And so, would you be doing this? This is where I got confused last time. Maybe this is, would you have them do this with the intent of ever selling it again? Or is this, they would just be putting in treasury and it would be more or less retired unless they had some reason to raise cash?
The way I understand it is they couldn't turn around and choose a time to sell the shares. That companies are generally not allowed to do that unless they're like a special holding company or treasury company, like these
Yes.
Bitcoin or crypto treasury companies. So it would be in essence to retire the shares. So it would be anti-dilutive.
Mhm.
And, some people argue, well, this is financial engineering. Well, when people join Tesla, they get shares in the company, which is dilutive. Is that financial engineering? They're avoiding paying their employees with cash, or instead paying them with some stock, just with a portion. Is that financial engineering? Like, these are things you want to be doing as a business.
100%. So now Apple has been doing it. They're probably, I don't know, in my lifetime, they were the ones that became the most famous for doing it because there was such a substantial, well, they were the largest company in the world, and there was such a substantial amount of money in the treasury, and they were, putting and buying back substantial amounts of stock every single year. And then it was always a question, how much more were they going to buy? That obviously worked out pretty well for them. They seem to have a formula. They have a theory about how much money they wanted to keep, in treasury, and they also had a theory about how to buy it back, when it was the right time to buy it back. So I would assume that you would think that Tesla, if they were doing this, would say, well, you know, we don't want to ever be below 30 billion in the bank. So we got 37, so we buy back seven.
Yeah, they can have a formula for reserves for a rainy day. Um, so Tesla's been through rainy days and cash has still grown.
Yes. And
So
and I think we failed, and I think people that worry about the buyback, and I'm kind of agnostic on it right now myself. Um, they don't take into consideration how fast Tesla can raise money if they need to. I mean,
right.
when you have a company that has 30 something billion in the bank and no debt, they can borrow money like that. I mean, it's be
Mhm.
no big deal at probably something under prime.
Yeah, so there's a number of people that say, well, Tesla needs to invest a lot in Optimus or in Robotaxi, and um, and this is to keep the Optimus for themselves or to keep the Robotaxis for themselves. Um, but here's the deal. If they kept 100,000 Model Ys as robotaxis, that would be $3 billion. And those robotaxis pay back. And let's say they're charging $1 a mile, so they're going cheap, right away on the pricing. That pays back in about a year.
Yeah.
If they charge $2 a mile, it pays back in 4 months. These are just my estimations. So uh, something pays back that quickly, you don't need a ton of cash.
Right. Right.
The same with Optimus. If Optimus is effective and is delivering that savings to labor, it's allowing you to expand your production. in Texas or Nevada or California, um, or you're loaning it out to suppliers, like Optimus is going to be delivering that value. The early Optimus probably will cost something close to 200 to 250,000, before they, scale it to the tens of thousands a month. It'll likely cost that much. Um, we know the parts don't cost that much, but just the whole
Right. Yes.
everything together. Um, so these programs, they don't need a ton of cash. And Tesla is not going to be comfortable suddenly fielding a million robo-taxis that they're going to keep. They're going to, by the time they go over 100,000 that they keep, they're going to go to customers and say, hey, do you want to put it on the network? Here are these standards that you need to meet if you put your car on the network.
Yeah, and even if they use the even if the Optimus stays in the Tesla fleet and gets leased out or rented out or whatever it is, similar, even more so than the cars, I believe anyway, that if they go market price, they might be replacing that capital with the down payment
Yeah,
or the first payment, if you will, or the first and last. I don't know how you want to look at it, but
right.
it might cost you 20 if the product costs 20,000 to build, they might get 20,000 as the opening part of the lease deal. So I think it would be very, very fast. I'm hyperbolizing a little bit, but they would get the money back so quickly. If they weren't going to get the cash back for a year, it'd be the
They could
simple.
also sell some. So like
What do
they
they do?
can keep some, but they could also sell some. In the case of robo taxis with Model Y, let's say they don't do the Cybercab right away, but they use Model Ys. For every five Model Ys they sell, they get the profits to keep another Model Y for their own fleet.
Right, right. And
Uh,
with the
Go
Optimus
ahead.
with the Optimus and the robotaxis, this having a subscription where you've got the income, you've got a contract with a subscription on it, which would be the Optimus. I'm sorry, not the robotaxis. On the Optimus, again, the simplest kind of financing ever to go out and get that financed. If you decide you needed more capital for any reason, it would take them probably an hour to get the check or to get the transfer of the funds.
Yeah, they could finance robo taxis, they could finance Optimus if they want, or if they need to. I don't think they'll need to. And by the time you're looking at scaling to the point where you want a million robo taxis, well, the 100,000 that you already have are already going to be very profitable. So you won't suddenly need extra cash that you're not generating at that point. People also wonder about Tesla Semi. Well, Tesla Semi is going to be in high demand. And maybe we could talk a little bit about the deal with Uber.
Yeah,
But
I have, I,
companies gotta want the Tesla Semi. Now that Tesla isn't making them by hand, their cost is going down.
yeah, I have, as much as I think that Tesla might eventually have a fleet of their own with regard, I'm not for their own use, but actually have a fleet where they're selling drayage. I don't think that's going to happen in the short term.
Right.
And that might be why that might be why Uber
Yeah.
was able to put this deal together, is because it's a very, very complicated business, the freight haulage business. And Uber is already in it. They've already become successful in it. So this might be a smarter way for them to get the small truckers to be in the game where they can go after the big guys. They can go after the Pepsis, the Walmarts, et cetera, that buy thousands of trucks, and let Uber handle the mom and pop trucking companies that want 1 to 100. Uh,
Mm.
so what did you think about the Uber thing, and why isn't why isn't the stock market responding? It would seem like that's a bigger deal than or is it just not as flashy a deal as the Hertz deal?
It's not as flashy, and right now Tesla semis aren't rolling out of the factory in large numbers. But this is a way the Uber Freight business is a way for Tesla to collect data. So when they sell a Tesla semi to Walmart or Pepsi or Frito-Lay, um, those trucks tend to run the same route every day, and they really don't get a ton of new data. There might be some new situations with weather
Sure.
or how the traffic is or different drivers, but they're not getting a variety of routes.
Mm.
And if they partner with Uber Freight, where essentially Uber Freight says, "Hey, we have this load. It needs to move from A to B, and here's the rate, or here's what you get for successfully moving it by a certain time." Um, that's what Uber Freight is. It's like
Like
a matching.
a brokerage, like a
Yeah.
matchmaker.
Yeah, so this is a really good partnership in my mind, for Tesla to take advantage of.
So I asked the question last night. I think it was Brian that I was talking to about what is the difference between we just talked about one of the possible differences, which is the complexity of the freight business. But why is Elon so adamant against putting a deal together with Uber on robotaxis and door wide open on freight?
I think with robotaxis, you're already having them go to many different destinations.
Doesn't
It's
need.
going to be pretty random, so you're getting that data. So I don't think it's necessary for Tesla, from a data standpoint, to partner with Uber. From a potential demand standpoint, I would agree. And there might be a certain point where Tesla does offer, to be on Uber, but it might look different than what Uber typically offers. So technically, I think Uber generally handles the insurance, and other things. So Tesla could handle that. So it may look a little different if Robotaxi was going to be on Uber, but I think Tesla is going to be better off long term if they can figure it out themselves.
Okay, all right. So the stock went down today, even though Goldman Sachs raised their price target from 300 to 395. The stock was going up. It went up overnight and it was going up this morning, but then all of a sudden it just tailed off. I kind of thought the Goldman Sachs thing would have been enough impetus to give us another gain. Now we've had, I don't know, what was it, 7 days in a row or something of gains. So maybe it was just time. What do you think?
I think it makes sense that it was just a cooling off, and Goldman Sachs, I believe, was price chasing with its price target increase, so that the stock had gone up substantially. So they're mainly just following the price of the stock. This is a game that Wall Street likes to play. So the stock goes down, they lower their price target after the fact. If it goes up, they raise their price target after the fact. The
Sometimes
bandwagon effect.
Yeah, sometimes we see that chasing going into the quarter end when we're getting close to the second of the month following the quarter, and the numbers in this particular case seem like they're going to be a huge beat. I'm expecting a beat, maybe as many as 500,000 cars. We've got what's his name, Troy Teslike now. Last time I checked was at 470. So that's not very far away from 500. And the street is still sitting between 430 and 445, depending on who you trust for those numbers. So there could be some chasing into that October 2nd date on a beat, not only on cars, but on energy, as well as for earnings, because if we beat on the numbers, well, then the earnings are going to be higher. So would you expect to see some people chasing that information over the next 10 days that might pop the stock?
It's possible the run up we just saw, absent the day that Elon bought, that run up was, people, thinking about the quarter more short term. Now I know that bulls are mainly thinking longer term. They're thinking about version 14, getting rid of the safety monitor and enabling, pretty rapid scaling in Texas of robotaxi. I think that's what they're excited about. They're excited about Elon's compensation package and the North Star that gives us as investors that we can point to and kind of have as a goal in our minds. I think that's what people are focused on longer term, but I think it is a shorter term thing. And what you would have with the quarter, you're right, is that earnings should be very good because they didn't do a bunch of incentives to get, all these sales. Um, and also like their cash flow should be really good too.
Yeah, yeah, it should definitely have good cash flow because there'll be no inventory. So that's be like a very nice pop on the cash flow side uh,
Yep.
as we sell out everything they can possibly get out the door. Well, we
So
also
let me briefly come back to buyback. So
yeah,
like I want to order like the uses of cash real quick.
for sure.
So one is your cash reserve.
Right,
So their cash, you know, res their cash grew 15 billion despite the rainy days. The next is like a maintenance of the existing business.
right.
So that would be a portion of the capex that they spent. The next is your spending for growth. So that's the 10 billion in R&D and probably a lion's share of the capex. And then you have acquisitions, but Tesla does not do large acquisitions. Most companies don't have the culture that Tesla would want to have. They wouldn't be nimble. Tesla would be blowing out probably a lot of the employees or making major changes. So a lot of companies just are not worth to Tesla what they would be worth to other potential buyers.
Mhm.
Um, and then right after that is buyback.
Right, right. Okay, yeah. No, I get it. And
So what's your reaction to it? Like I know a lot of Tesla bulls are against it.
I think well, first of all, I suppose in my heart of hearts, I would like to see Tesla potentially finding ways to use it if they possibly can. But I
Hmm.
also know I'm looking around and other than buying data centers, the other Mag 7, they don't have anything to spend it on. They just don't, okay, sure.
Right. They're in the position of Apple before Apple started the buyback. And
Exactly.
it's not like because Tesla is X growth,
Right.
they're just spending it efficiently. You
Right.
have Elon, who's probably one of the best capital allocators.
Ever.
He's got, the R&D spend that Tesla does and the amount of value they get out of that spend is incredible. Um, and so he doesn't need to spend any more money either.
Yeah, of course. Now I also, so then we got the whole question of buying some of XAI. Uh,
Hmm.
how do you feel about if there was a choice and it was going to be cash and it was going to be 5 to 10,000, 5 to 10 billion, thousand, 5 to 10 billion. Where would you rather go into XAI or into a buyback?
Well, I'm bullish on where what we think Tesla is worth if they solve autonomy with robotaxi. So I think it could be a $1,500 stock, just with that. And if they become a leader in humanoid robotics, that's an additional $3,500 a share.
Right.
So that's, potentially 5,000 a share or more. Um, so I feel like Tesla itself may be the better investment. So I'd rather they buy Tesla on a, when there's gnashing of teeth and people are angry at Elon again. I
So,
don't think they should set a schedule where they're just buying it all year round, no matter what the price is. That's what all these companies do, and it's really dumb. Like you don't want to just buy it throughout the quarter every quarter. You want to have some rules and buy it at a discount.
so X and XAI, which is now one company, which is what is going to be on the voting right now,
Mhm.
is to invest in that. If Elon is right, which he announced yesterday, that or yesterday, the day before, he says, for the very first time, I think there's a chance that Grok 5 could solve AGI. And Grok 5 is going to be out January 1, roughly.
Hmm.
Don't you think there's a chance for a 10x on the value of XAI if they solve AGI
It could, but if there's a number of other companies that do it as well,
between now and then?
or like shortly thereafter.
All right. Okay. Anyway, that's one of the things. And then we've also got the X side of the equation, which we're supposed to be getting into payments, where we would, if we do get,
But New York's opposed to, they're going to oppose X payments just because of the politics.
who's going to oppose it?
New York State.
Okay,
I
is
don't think they have New York State yet. I could be wrong.
that one
And
of the,
that's a pretty big one for payments.
I would guess so.
I
Anyway,
could be wrong.
I heard that they had actually bought a bank or made a deal with a bank to do the payments,
Okay.
solving the problem of
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, okay. So anyway, those are two possible ways though of spending the money. And right now you are coming down maybe on the side of buying back as opposed to buying XAI.
Yeah, that's where I am today. Yeah.
I think I'm coming down slightly on the side of the XAI for a number of reasons, but one of those is I think it's a, a good thing to have a piece of a company that I think there's going to be so much interlock, so many
Yeah.
transactions going both ways. I think there's going to
So
be
when Elon did his last public announcement with XAI, what he was saying, the limits they ran into with training was that they needed more real world data. So where are they going to get a lot of that from? They're going to get it from Tesla.
yeah.
So I almost feel like XAI needs Tesla more than Tesla needs XAI.
I think I said that first, and I think I said
Okay.
it to you, but I'm glad you now agree. Yeah, I think I do too. But they still need each other. I still think it's going to be a tremendous amount of transactions going both ways.
Mhm.
So I think it's not even a matter of who needs who most. I just think the locking up a an ownership combination in this way would be a good idea in terms of why I don't know because
It would help with conflicts of interest for
there you
one.
go. That's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. So we have new batteries coming from Panasonic. I don't know anything about it. All I can, I don't know about what taking the anode away. It's a little bit above my pay grade. I've been following everything that is happening in that world and watching every single video that the limited factor puts out. But is this a big deal, or do you know?
I think it would be if the cost is reasonable. So if the cost doesn't increase by 25%, but you're getting good volumetric and weight density of the battery so that you could do 25% more battery in the same profile or weight, I do think that would be a very big deal.
Okay, all right. Because they're talking about the end of 2027, but that's still in today's world, that's next week. Uh,
Hmm.
in so
And generally, Tesla's been more cost conscious than performance conscious with their batteries. So, there's other Chinese EV makers that are their cars may charge more quickly,
yeah,
but they don't make the EVs profitably.
right, right.
So, Tesla's been more cost conscious, I think,
Yeah.
with batteries. Now they're not cheap. They're not cheap to the point where they're risking, battery fires or that the lifetime of the battery is harmed by them, cutting costs when they make it.
Mhm, mhm.
So Tesla has a really good combination of presently of cost, lifetime, safety, performance. The charging performance hasn't been great compared to others, though.
Right.
But I think generally it's not necessary. Like, um, you plug in your car at home, you wake up and it's fully charged.
And I think, by the way, I do believe that eventually we will see new charging standard or better charging times at the power at the superchargers.
Hmm.
So, today is the first day of the new interest rate, 25 basis points off. I've been saying that the beginning of the cutting of the interest rates by the Fed would be the last puzzle piece necessary to get us to the golden age. Over the last 24 hours, the probably the future Fed chairman Hassett said that he can imagine that we could be going to over 4% GDP increases. Fourth quarter, first quarter, we could be looking at 4% increases. Trump and Chamath had a discussion in the in the Oval Office about the impact of the tariffs. You caught some more on that in terms of
Hmm.
the tariffs implications for our deficit. Can you bring us up to date? Do you think that we're looking at are all the pieces, are all the parts in place? That doesn't mean you can't have a black swan that gets in the way of everything. But as you look at it today, does it look to you like the promised golden age now that all the parts are in place to get it done?
It's certainly looking better. Certainly the Supreme Court could play the role of spoiler if they were to say that the tariffs are a tax, and then they have to redo the trade deals or whatever. Um, but the CBO initially, when the big beautiful bill was passed, they said that it would increase the deficit by $3 trillion. But they gave Trump no credit for tariff receipts. So receipts from tariffs or receipts from other countries. Now, the deal they have with Europe, I believe Europe is pledging to send the US $900 billion or something on the order of that. Japan is 500 or 600 billion. And all told, they're now saying um, that the big beautiful bill will be a $600 billion surplus. Just all these country deals. So you also have South Korea is pledging a large amount of cash and just the tariff receipts as well.
Right.
Um, so I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that the CBO didn't give them any credit for receipts
There.
that way.
Well, they not only didn't give them any credit for the tariffs, they really, in the initial analysis, they barely gave them what you would consider to be the dynamic changes that would happen from the big beautiful bill.
Hmm.
So now later on, they came back and they said, well, there are going to be some dynamic changes here. It's
Hmm.
obvious that if you reduce the taxes to corporations from an effective rate of 24 down to 16, which is Cathie Wood's estimate, that it'll drop that much because of the immediate ability to write off capital expenses and buildings,
Hmm.
et cetera. If you drop the tax rate from 24 to 16, companies are going to start building things and buying
Yeah.
equipment. And that is going to help the economy by a lot. And you're going to see, pretty dramatic increase in how the economy works.
I
Again,
think I do agree with you. It's a very good setup for the economy and for our country. And it's something that's going undercover because the media wants to cover all the drama. They don't want to cover the things that are going well. And people were very critical of all the tariffs. They were very critical about how Trump negotiated them in public. They're critical of his admittedly cartoonish, tote board that he posted on Liberation Day on that Wednesday night. Um, but they have since gotten deals. they've gotten deals. Canada hasn't come in line yet, and they're willing to um, go through a recession and self-flagellate or whatever they're doing up there up north. Um, yeah, maybe the maple syrup will help bind their wounds or whatever, but um, they have made the deals. Like it's working. The media is not talking about it.
Yeah, in fact, it's so weird is that we've had all these conversations over the last 2 weeks about interest rates, about the reason for various interest rates, about the labor problem or not labor problem, et cetera. And AI hardly ever comes into the conversation except as some future thing that might, I mean, Powell said we have the tip of the spear of AI hitting the labor market. I think it's way more than the tip of the spear based on some
Mhm.
of the things I'm hearing. And I know you've already talked about this a little bit on air. Um, I asked Cern Basher, he'll be on later tonight. I asked him the same question. How much, I know it's impossible to quantify it, but how much do you think AI is already impacting your personal productivity?
It's greatly improving it, but um I may be so bold to say I'm one of the AI haves instead of the AI have nots. So I do think there's a difference between people who are getting the benefit and those who are still skeptical or aren't even trying to benefit from it. So we're seeing a lot of benefit in our business. We hired a full-time computer programmer to do the agentic AI programming. It 10x his productivity. Um, so we're extremely excited about it, but admittedly, a lot of businesses have struggled to get value out of it so far. But I do think this is changing and it'll continue to accelerate moving forward.
Well, speaking of that, you've on this channel talked about what might be your second favorite stock, which is Lemonade.
Mhm.
Over the course of the last week, I've seen X posts flying around your thread with regard to Lemonade. So what the heck's going on over at Lemonade that's causing all the kerfuffle?
So Lemonade is their stock's been in neutral recently, but it did surge tremendously off of the lows they had around the California fires. There's a lot of fear around, what kind of impact that would have. The stock also went down around, for whatever reason, around the tariffs, but that created buying opportunities. They're just now getting back into car insurance, and they're really loving what they're seeing in Indiana and Colorado, and they they automate it. They study the telematics, um, and Tesla isn't suddenly taking over all of car insurance or all of transportation. It'll happen over time. So and Lemonade does have some time to benefit in the car insurance, and I think it's being underestimated. What kind of progress Lemonade is making, both in car insurance, but also in Europe.
Hmm.
Lemonade is using AI to quickly roll out into Europe, and to adjust things based off of whatever the regulations are. But the regulations are more lax in Europe. In the US, you have these statewide regulations where you have to get rate approvals for each
Yeah,
state
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to increase your prices or adjust them or to price differently. Whereas in Europe, that's not the case.
Okay.
So they can quickly adjust rates in Europe to get to rate adequacy.
So I saw some reporting that they're using AI for both customer acquisition or for their advertising promotion, for their methods of getting the phone calls coming in. And then I saw a headline, I didn't read the article, somewhere that said that their ways of closing, I don't even know whether it is automated or whether it's humans, but this was gushing about the way that they close deals. I don't know if you saw those articles or not.
They do very well as far as offering discounts. And
Okay.
then um, if you're a certain driver and you drive safely or you don't drive in traffic, these sorts of things, you can get discounts. And now they're going to verify that through telematics over the course of the first month. So if you say you're safer than you really are, you're going to see a rate increase. Um, but they keep people on telematics. So greater than 90% of their car insurance customers are using telematics. I think it's over 95%.
Um,
Whereas Progressive, who started the whole telematics business, is like around a third. That's the estimate. They get people for like the first 2 to 4 weeks, and then they're okay with that ending and moving on from there. So Lemonade's much more serious about collecting the data, but keeping that data.
so
And
last,
this makes all the difference. This
yeah,
makes a huge
yeah, of course,
difference.
of course it does. Okay, so last thing, we've got the S&P at like 6650. We've got Tesla, 12% away from all-time high. We've got a lot of year left. We got a whole quarter left.
Hmm.
Are you guys speculating as to where the year ends up here? I mean, S&P at 6650 is already above Tom Lee's number at 6600. With a whole quarter to go, we've got Tesla almost at all-time highs. Of course, I've said it'll get to 1,000, but that's only if we've got 500, 1,000 cars out there with no riders in them. What are you looking at for the rest of the year in terms of the market and in terms of Tesla?
Unless the Supreme Court plays spoiler, I think things should proceed on. Um, as far as how margin borrowing, people look at that and say, okay, margin borrowing is high, but as a percentage of market cap, it's in the lower end of its range.
Hmm.
Um, so it seems like people are not over levered in general with the stock market. So the rally or this march onward could continue. Um, we'll see when we get V14 with Tesla. If it's really good, then maybe they can remove the safety monitor in cities where they're comfortable. The safety monitor doesn't just sit there and be ready to intervene. They're taking notes about pickup and drop off and other things that it's doing qualitatively. So in the areas where they're satisfied, the safety monitors can move on and test new areas in Austin, or maybe they find another role at Tesla if they're tied to Austin. So I'm excited about Tesla expanding to other parts of Texas this year.
Mhm, mhm.
Now the rollout's gone a lot slower than I thought it would. I thought we'd be at like we'd be doubling the number of cars every few weeks, that sort of thing.
I think we,
Um,
I think we all did. Yeah.
yeah, so that part's gone slower. But I'm optimistic that B14 is really going to knock our socks off.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't think necessarily the market sells off from here, famous last words, but um, if the Supreme Court did something, I think it could create an opportunity. Um, so we'll see. There was another piece I want to just mention or tease people about.
Sure. Go.
Uh, So Larry and I, we're actually going to be starting a private equity business together,
Oh.
and we'll have more about that soon. But our next video, we're gonna introduce the name, point people to the website if they're interested. This is for accredited investors or qualified purchasers. So you have to have a certain income or net asset value with your investments. And um, we're looking beyond Musk Industries. So, First Principles Group, they're very good um, with things that are Musk related, and Larry and I are looking beyond that. Not because we think necessarily what we're doing is better. It's just different.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Interesting. So that's you'll have an announcement next week.
Yeah, by early next week at the latest. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. A lot of new businesses starting up within the Randy Kirk co-host business.
Yes. Yeah.
We have the book. We have you and Larry. We have another one I won't talk about.
Mhm.
That sounds like lots of opportunities out there. All right. So let's see. Was that all there was, or is that all there is? I think we covered all.
Right before we do something, the 10-year is at 4.11%. So it's been trickling down in
Yeah.
general. So that's better than where it was.
I'm so
I think
sorry.
that's a positive, and also mortgage rates are generally lower than where they've been. So the bond market seems to be anticipating further reductions in interest rates. I know, maybe the stock market's a little skeptical of how much the Fed is going to lower from here, but um, I think that's a positive
I
for
think
many businesses.
the bond market got down into the threes yesterday, came back up to 411. But I think part of that was profit taking, but I think part of that might have also been the jobs number today was too high, too hot. The number of people first time unemployed.
Hmm.
Last week it was up to like 266,000 or something. Everybody went crazy. Well, it
Hmm.
turned out that was a bad number, and there was some fraud in Texas, blah blah blah. So
Oh boy.
they lowered that by 30,000, and this week it came in at like 233, which is pretty normal. So that's hot. I mean, that's actually a hot number. And
Hmm.
so I think the bond market got a little spooked that the economy is doing too well. So that might have been why we bounced back up to around 411.
Okay. Well, let's get right to the numbers.
Okay, thank you very much, as always, for being on. And we will get right to the numbers. Bye now. All right, so Tesla, after being up, I'm sorry, did I say up? After being down 2.12% during the regular hours, is up up 0.16 in the after hours as of 3 o'clock on Wednesday in California. The Magnificent Seven also was completely mixed today, with NVIDIA being the star. I guess maybe because of the deal that they put together with Intel. I'm not sure whether that was it or something else. Google was up a little bit, but everything else was just kind of mixed on that. And we had the Cathie Woods generally up today, even though the bond market ended up slightly coming back up. So that's kind of where everything happened today in those markets. I don't think we'll have. I'm going to go ahead and put on pause so that I can give you the equities, what's happening with those in the pre-market. I'll be right back. So the bonds ended up at 411, so almost exactly where they were a little while ago. And I'm hoping, I really believe that they will be coming down. We'll see, but I think they will. We've got oil down just a little bit today, 63.52. That's good. Natural gas hanging out, $2.94. So that's all those. Now, when I say that these prices are good, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for the general economy, not necessarily for the oil industry. They might like to be higher. The natural gas people, they might like it to be higher. But when I talk about that, I'm talking about for you and me. We want these prices to stay low. Not so that it hurts the industry, just low. We've got gold down another $1.80, but it was down substantially earlier today. So we're now down to 36.76, and silver continues down a tad, down 0.07 in the pre-market. We've got copper almost exactly pretty much unchanged at 454, almost 555. So it's been hanging out there a little bit above 450 now for several days. We got the dollar up against both the euro and the yen, so that's looking good. We've got Bitcoin up 1552. That is back up now up to 117,281. So taking a real run, getting back up there close to all-time highs. Ether is up 1.8% today so far at 4,589. Then you've got tomorrow the equities. We're sitting at just barely up. I mean, up is better than down, right? So we're up like Dow 0.15, S&P 0.14, and NASDAQ 0.11. So just barely up, just slightly up again, which is better than down. So what'll happen tomorrow in the markets? Well, there's not a lot of news tomorrow. In fact, there's absolutely zero economic news tomorrow. And the economic news today was strong, which is partially the reason why I think those bonds are up, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll see what happens next week. We've got, as always, a bunch of economic news coming next week, including the beginning of some of the Fed presidents and governors talking next week at various functions, and that's always interesting right after the Fed meeting to see what they're all saying. All right, I think that's all I've got for you tonight. Let's let you know that this is Thursday, so you'll have Cern Basher with a amazing piece of work, as always, as Cern always says, later tonight. It'll be a little earlier tonight, maybe around 7 o'clock. And we'll have, although it's football night, I'm still going to put it up at 7 o'clock California time. And we'll get this one out early tonight and before the game. And let's see what else. What else do you need to know? Oh, yeah. Last night, Brian Wong, that's still the one you're going to go back and watch. That was a very, very, very useful video. Yeah, it's already gotten lots and lots of views, but yeah, you should go back and check it out. Okay. I think that's it. So it's been great talking to you.